How about now? We'll keep going? Okay. All right, so what I'm going to do is give you just a really brief introduction to the ALA, a bit of a rationale for why we went into this, for the problem space that we were in and why we started doing this work to begin with. We started about 2 years ago. The events framework that we've actually built, there's a special use case that is called Seed Bank that we've been, that's using the model, the data model itself, and what we intend on doing next. So let me just try and click this and see what happens. Nothing yet. Towards you. Oh, hey, there we are. There's my list of things I just read. Can the online people hear us? Have we got the online people? Okay. So just quickly, the Atlas of Living Australia, for those of you who don't know, is Australia's national biodiversity infrastructure. We basically, for the most part, work with occurrence core records. We've got several hundred data partnerships with state and federal jurisdictions in Australia, all the museums and collections and citizen science agencies, a lot of them. A lot of our software has been reused by living atlases, and of course we're the Australian node of GBIF. So I want to describe for you the problem space that we started off with, starting at the top, going around anti-clockwise order. We did a national consultation a few years ago with hundreds of our stakeholders and found a really loud call for providing more structured contextual data around surveys. We found that our researchers were looking for more information about monitoring effort. They wanted more time series relevant information, the ability to infer absence. So that was a big call that we needed to listen to. Around the same time, our colleagues in environmental monitoring in Australia were building the Australian Biodiversity Information Standard, and that was capturing, that was an ontology to capture things like site visits and surveys. And we knew we were going to have to be interoperable with that standard. Moving on to Event Core, GBIF had supported Event Core for some time. The spec had been out there for a while and we didn't offer support for it. Our main index is a solar index, which doesn't have really great support for nested data structures. And also about 2 years ago, you'll remember that the GBIF unified model work was starting to get going, and we had no idea how long that was going to take or when there was going to be something to be able to, to do something with. So that's where we were starting from and not really quite sure what to do at all. So what we did was we decided to try to land on some sort of data structure that worked for us and incorporated some of these requirements that had come in that we could see. We wanted to build a data ingestion pipeline because that's what we do, and index an API that would serve up the data to a user interface and a download service so that the users could access. So that's our standard sort of framework for delivery, and we planned to build something along those lines. And I'll just go through each of those elements now with you. So in terms of the event core data structure that we wanted to work with, we did a review on the other data standards that were about looking at this sort of stuff. So we had a look at Humboldt Core, or Humboldt Extension as we now know, and that concept of inventories and absence. We looked at OBIS, the OBIS event data structure with the hierarchical event structure and extended measurement or fact that Dave was talking about just a few minutes ago. We looked at ABIS and its structure and its ontology and the sorts of things that they saw as important, and that was an observations and measurements based ontology. We had a BioCollect system that held a lot of formal systematic survey data sets. And of course, we were looking at the different use cases that were up and running for the GBIF unified model. So we were interested in the CamTrack DP and iNaturalist use cases. So in the end, our adapted event core model really just brought a couple of new things in. The hierarchical event structure was always there in the data model, but we wanted to build it into the system so that the system could read it and use it. And we proposed, with the help of John Wachorick, an event type to be added to the Darwin core terms, list of Darwin core terms, and that had a vocabulary, draft vocabulary that we proposed as well, comprised of these sorts of terms: site visits, surveys, samples, etc. Occurrences would belong to events, and measurements or facts or multimedia could be associated then with either an occurrence or an event. Boom, I've got to point this there. Okay, so we've built our pipeline, which I won't go into in great detail. I think the thing, what we've done that's clever about that really is to ingest an event core data set. Our occurrence records go through their standard pipeline, ingestion pipeline, and to our Solar index. So our system runs as per normal with this extra event data pipeline running on top, which then is read into an Elasticsearch index, and the Elasticsearch environment is much better for the nested data structures. So what we've got during that data pipeline, during that processing, we can do stuff like propagate higher level event information and location information down into the lower levels so that we don't have to gather that information again and again from the data provider. Next, so we built a user interface as well. This was our first foray into single page applications. It's got all the usual suspects there, the filtering by event types, sampling protocols, by locations and taxonomy. We have a the interface gives us a visualization of the structure of the data, ultimately the system helps you navigate through a data set, look at what's in that data set and how it's comprised. So we've got this visualization here of the overarching data set, contains a survey which comprises of several site visits where samples take place, and then a sample can have measurements associated with it, and it can have occurrences with measurements associated with the occurrences. You can also see through this interface the ratio of events to occurrences to sites, the taxonomic coverage, and the types of measurements that are available with each data set. Oh, no, wrong button. We've got a site, if you select site visit type events, we've got a interface here that gives you a site plot that'll show you, give you an indication of monitoring effort over time. Really? Okay, I better move on then. So, and maps, downloads, you can download a package that's both a Darwin core archive spec and a frictionless data set. So that's, it adheres to both specs. Our use case was seed bank. I actually won't go into that in great detail. Just know lots of events, lots of measurements, lots of hierarchical data. It's been really, this model's been really useful for this implementation, and its own UI has been built on top. That's seedbank.ala.org.au. Our next steps, we're hoping to do a public release by the end of the year, and we're looking for engagement and feedback, mostly from our data providers across Australia. What's useful? What could be better? What should we do next? And what opportunities are there to develop models for different data types? Thanks. That's it. Any questions?
No, not on that online. Lots of people applauding online though.
Oh, that's nice.
You can do it on, in the room when you have the mic.
In the room one.
Oh, are there any questions from the room? Up there in the corner.
Hi, Peggy.